radio is broadcast on LSL Podcast Channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
Well, that's one type of Christmas wrapping, a hijab. Alison Camerata said that she would wear a hijab in solidarity with Muslim women. Go for it. One of my old producers messaged me and on Facebook, and he said, would you consider Laura wearing a hijab in solidarity with... Well, I'll consider doing that when Saudi Arabia considers allowing churches to be built. Yeah. Okay. I'll do that if you do. Oh, okay. I'm happy to do that if we get some reciprocal benefits. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Students at the University of Wisconsin, campus are wearing hijabs for a day. That was the story that came out today. Participants expressing positive experiences during the event that took place yesterday. As part of Islam Appreciation Week. Do they have Christianity Appreciation Week? We talk about all the Christian values and belief and traditions about marriage, and you gonna do that? Or what are we going to appreciate about Islam? Which parts of Islam are we going to appreciate? Oh, just the parts that are cool. Okay. So female students across campus became hijabis for the day, stepping into the shoes of female Muslims on campus. Why don't they become campus conservatives for a day? We should have Conservative Students Appreciation Day where they drive around campus with Trump stickers on the back of their car. Yeah, and wearing Make America Great hats, and see what happens to them for the day. See if they now can go through the pain and the ridicule that conservative students go through on campus. During the hijabi for a day, the women met in the morning to receive their headscarves and also get assigned a texting buddy who also wears a hijab on a day-to-day basis. So, Farhat Buyuhan, one of the organizers of the event, said one of the main goals is to normalize Muslim female practices. She said hijabs don't always mean that a person is a Muslim, but they often do. Wait, who wears hijabs who aren't Muslims? I'm unaware of this trend. Are they trying to make this just a fashion trend for everyone? I predict that will be a fashion trend for everyone. Liberal women don't see the conflict here. They don't see the conflict with the way certain parts of Islam treats women and their professed feminism. They don't get it. They don't see the conflict. They just see that anything that you can do to oppose what Trump stands for, or generally more conservative views about immigration and so forth, then they're just going to do it regardless of whether it conflicts with your overall professed political and cultural outlook. It doesn't matter. I got some looks, one of the participants said, Anna Ambrose, a sophomore at UW. I'm wondering, and she said, I'm sure they were wondering why I was wearing a hijab because I never had before. I'm not Muslim. During the day, she said she wanted that dialogue to help educate others and break stereotypes. To her, having controversial conversations is really important. Ambrose said she originally decided to participate to support Muslim women during the current climate. Why don't they do more to support Muslim women in Saudi Arabia? Muslim women in Afghanistan who are beaten if they're seen talking to another man. Muslim girls who attempt to go to school to see what the Taliban does to them. I think the Muslim women on university campuses in the United States, I think they're doing okay. That's my sense. I think they're pretty well set on college campuses. That's a pretty good life, don't you think? I wonder how much the tuition is at the University of Wisconsin. Check that out, Drew. How much is that costing folks? Oh, Drew says that Cosmo has a a piece out, just came out. You can now buy a sporty, sweat-wicking hijab. And isn't it about time? Oh my! Headscarves for Muslim women, they used to veil their hair and neck in public for religious purposes, have traditionally made it difficult for women who want to participate in high-intensity athletics. After all, it's tough to play a contact sport when you're wearing flowing fabric. But then you had the deal with the Team USA Muslim fencer, and she broke that barrier. She appeared on the cover of Running magazine wearing a hijab. So despite the fact that fewer Muslim women are letting their hijabs hold them back, there's still been little innovation in the headscarf. And now it looks like, yeah, there are all these different colors, moisture-wicking fabric, pull-on hijabs. You can customize your hijab to match your team colors. For spring, this new company has big plans to launch team uniforms and even more activewear options for Muslim women who practice modesty by covering up. I'm all for modesty. But think about it. When Christian parents complain about the length of skirts and so forth, how many of these feminist types on college campuses give them the time of day? I mean, Christians have been complaining about the culture and the lack of modesty among women and young girls for decades. This has been going on for decades. And they don't even get their calls returned on school campuses, on college campuses. But the Muslim folks come along and they say, this is what we want. And then everybody jumps. Isn't that interesting? Modesty has been an issue for conservative Christians and conservative Catholics and evangelicals for a long time. And mostly they're just ridiculed. You might as well be considered an Amish person. If you have ever any question about the pubic bone revealing shorts that young girls are wearing today. But the Muslim Students Association comes along and complains and everybody jumps. Very interesting. I wonder why that is. We have a lot to get to on the Laura Ingraham Show, including an interview with a criminal profiler who's going to tell us what some signs are in this evidence so far where a mom in California was abducted by two Hispanic women, tortured, and then released with some type of branding on her. Badly beaten, still recovering in the hospital, and emaciated, starved for 22 days, as weighs 87 pounds, covered in scabs and scars. We're going to talk about that. And your calls, 855-40-LAURA, college campus political correctness. You'd like to say it's run amok, but it's below the muck, buried deep into the dirt. I mean, this has now gotten crazy. They're burning the flag on campuses, lowering the flag on campuses, but at least we get to wear the hijabs. Don't go. Political correctness can kill, ultimately, when we put our nation's security, the need for tranquility, peace, happiness, safety in our communities. We put that in the way back seat, the way back as we used to call it. And we put concerns about diversity and political correctness right on the front seat, right on that front burner. No matter what we have to sacrifice, no matter how vulnerable our population becomes, no matter how changed our culture becomes, including rural communities, a small-town America, because of mass migration and mass refugee populations being dropped in, doesn't matter. This is our obligation. That's what the international community would say, and this is what liberals would demand. Trump said, not so fast. Our obligation is to the American people, first and foremost. I just got an interesting email. The Chanel boutique in L.A. is now attracting wealthy Muslim shoppers with hijab designs. Oh, these are hijabs that are covering everything. Check this out, Drew. It's a red hijab with kind of a rose or some Is that a rose on top? Yeah, some kind of
it's really
flower.
stylish, yeah.
Flower on top, but it's
flowers.
How do you breathe through that? Look at the mouth. It's completely covered and the nose is covered. That's confining. See?
It's got to be hot in L.A. too.
That looks like the Power Rangers costume that Nico had. No, seriously, he had that Power Rangers.
Oh, it does, actually.
James,
Yeah,
you can't see it, but it looks like the Power Rangers. It's a pretty
from
color.
far away, I can see what you're talking about.
Yeah, but you see what I mean? It covers
like a
the
little ninja
nose
or
and
something.
ninja. Sorry, it's a ninja, not power. I get them all mixed.
That's close enough.
Yeah, but as controversy over the hijab grows globally, some fashion designers and boutiques are using the religious apparel to appeal to a widening demography of customers. Well, you have enough in the United States now. You have a market. That's how you change the culture, too. You have the market for it. You have market for halal food. You have the market for hijab. You have market for burqas. You got the market. So, they're going to appeal to that marketplace. That doesn't surprise me one bit. 855-40-LAURA. Would you wear a hijab for a day in order to empathize with Muslim women in the United States? Would you wear a hijab for the day? Well, I guess if Muslim women could wear something that would make them seem like serious Christians, well, a cross isn't going to be enough. Well, what could they wear? A cross and wear some...
One of those WWJD bracelets, maybe?
What would Jesus do? Bracelet, have to wear some type of T-shirt that says, Jesus is Lord, or... I don't know. It doesn't really apply because we don't have these, unless they dressed up as nuns, like fully habited nuns. Well, the nuns believe in modesty and having apparel that sets them apart from the public. At least they used to. I love the fully habited nuns. I don't like the nuns on a bus nuns. Those nuns on a bus travel all around and they're in their polyester pantsuits and they're pushing the nuclear disarmament and they're pushing all these liberal programs. The nuns on the bus. Yeah, no, they're the... No. You can always tell the liberal nuns by the polyester pantsuits. Full habits are totally cool for nuns. I love the fully habited look for nuns. It does set them apart, which is nice. Same with a priest. If you see a priest with a collar, you actually act better around the priest. I do. In the nun, same thing. Is get the ruler out. You didn't behave today. I'm going to get in trouble for that. John in California is telling me not to wear the hijab, even if we can get some concessions out of Saudi Arabia. Hey, if we could get a church, a real church in Saudi Arabia that's not suppressed or in any way tormented for being there, I'd wear the hijab for a month if I could get Saudi Arabia to open a real church. Oh, that right near Mecca. And one in Mecca and one Medina. Okay. John, go ahead.
Well, unfortunately, the message that you'd be sending is not the one that you think you're sending. To make a long story short, the Taliban, the Muslim Brotherhood, and other clerics who are males have pretty much forced this on Muslim women to the point where they will not allow Muslim women to enter the mosque without wearing the hijab. And even though it's not required by the Quran, it's actually a symbol of them trying to force their ultra-conservative interpretation on women. So these liberal women who do it are definitely not advancing the cause of women, for sure.
Yeah, there's this is history of the hijab. The practice of veiling predates Islam by hundreds of years and can be traced back as far as ancient Greece. This is a piece called The History and Evolution of the Hijab in Iran. Clearly, this proves that veiling is not an Islamic ideology, rather a cultural one. When the niece of the Prophet Muhammad's wife was asked by her husband Musab to veil her face, she answered, "Since the Almighty hath put on me the stamp of beauty, it is my wish that the public should view the beauty and thereby recognize his grace onto them. On no account, therefore, will I veil myself." During the second Islamic century, the veil and the forced seclusion at home of women came to signify high status. If a woman was able to stay at home, this meant that her family had enough means for her not to have to go out and find work. However, this does not apply everywhere in the Islamic world. In modern-day Turkey, it was conquered by the Muslim Turks, of course, in the 4th century. Ibn Battuta expressed his fascination upon observing unveiled women, not only royal ladies, but also wives of merchants and common people. But by the end of the 20th century, going all the way, fast forwarding to the 20th century, the veiling of women suddenly came to represent repression, oppression, and misogyny, the roots of which were probably planted by the first interactions between Western culture and the other. And go back to Khomeini and the 79 revolution. So before the revolution, Iran benefited from the high price of oil, etc. However, this required large numbers of American personnel to be stationed there. When the 79 revolution took place under Khomeini, Iran moved from being a pro-Western autocratic monarchy, of course, into a secular, autonomous secular republic. However, it was during that second stage of the revolution that Khomeini really rose to power, and then came these very radical measures, and the hijab and the covering became, of course, much more prominent. And then now it's taken on new meanings, but that's why they banned it in France. You can't be fully veiled in France. It's not allowed. I'd still do it I would wear a hijab for an entire month if Saudi Arabia would open a church. A real church, not a fake church, but a real church. Of course I would. I'd have to sacrifice. We'll get to all your calls. 855-40-LAURA. Also, a criminal profiler tells us what these disturbing details of this abduction in California of a mom and a wife, a blonde woman who was taken captive by two Hispanic women. What happened to her that could reveal perhaps a hate crime? My comment for the day. Look out in the morning and I'm commenting. Okay. All right. All I know is it can't be a good trend, as the New York Post is reporting today, that more people who are married are sleeping in separate beds. Remember the old Mary Tyler Moore show, the Dick Van Dyke show?
The two twin beds.
Oh, the two twin beds?
That was confusing.
Lucy.
Now, Lucy? Yeah, and they had the long flannel pajamas. That was good TV. That was great TV. The kids didn't need to see anything else, okay? Yeah, we want
I didn't need to see their bed.
The Brady Bunch, they were together, but they were reading the paper. They always were reading the paper at night in the Brady Bunch shows, right?
Breaking news.
You'd never see that today. Reading it in just a moment, we'll be joined by Father Michael Sliney, who's written and spoken so eloquently on and keeping the relationship together, a marriage together, how critical it is not to give up, and how to make it through the tough times. Calls, questions, comments. What have you learned as married couples? Let's go to Paul, Houston, Texas, line 5, before we get to the father. Paul, go ahead.
Oh, yes. Thanks for taking my call. I was just going to work this morning, and I heard what the topic was, and ironically, that's something that my wife and I had ironically kind of gotten into, just because we've got an 8-year-old that likes to sleep in our bed, our daughter, and then I've got one of my twins that he likes for me to at least lay down with him for a little bit before he goes to sleep. And then over a little bit of time, all of a sudden I'm waking up in the middle of the night and I'm still in his bed. So it doesn't happen every single night, but I can tell you this, I've got multiple friends of mine that they do it on a regular basis. So I'm not doing it because I've got a problem in my marriage. I would say my wife, she works full time. I work full time. We spend a lot of time together on the weekends with our kids, and our schedules are so busy that, when we get in the bed, it's almost go to sleep time. And then there's plenty of time for mom and dad during the day, because we're both self-employed. So
I got you. You know what I think? That Raymond Arroyo always says this: the bed is sacred territory. That's the marital bed. The idea that kids should be sleeping in your bed. I mean, I know it's convenient. You don't want to get up, put them back in their bed, but from what I've heard, and I just think that's I think you might want to just enforce that border a little bit better. It's like the federal government. We got to enforce our border, watch for the incursions coming up from the south, okay? Enforce the border. Marital sovereignty. Yes, it means something. I appreciate it, Paul. Let's go to Jim, Ocala, Florida, line 2, before we get to our guest, and advice for you. Having trouble, we'll help you solve it. Jim, go ahead.
Hi, Laura.
Hey.
I hope Paul is still listening because he has more of a problem than he realizes. I've been married to my wife for 37 years, and we never spend a night apart. And there's more to the marital bed than a sex party, for instance. It's an emotional reinforcement. I can't wait to spoon with my wife, and it would hurt her. It would hurt her feelings if I suggested that we sleep. Now,
so in 30, in 37 years, you have never spent a night apart.
Well,
really?
I maybe if I was on a business trip for a night or two, yeah.
Counselor, I rest my case. No, I'm just kidding. I just thought, that's amazing. I mean, I was not critical. I was just like, that's incredible. That means you've literally never been apart. But I understand what you're saying. Father Michael Sliney's with us here on the Laura Ingraham Show. Delighted he's with us. He writes as well on occasion for Life Set, and his great little video. Well, kind of videos, faith tutorials on issues like mercy, forgiveness, prayer time, and keeping relationships together. Father Sliney, great to talk to you. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Laura. Thank you.
So what is the biggest, in your experience, and you counsel people and you counsel couples, what keeps coming up? What is the big stumbling block for couples today? And aside from an issue like a big problem like fidelity, which obviously is critical, but what beyond that big one of infidelity is getting in the couple's way of staying together and spending more meaningful time together?
Well, I think being a Catholic priest, Laura, and even working with Christians, if Christ isn't at the center of the marriage, there's not going to be enough motivation for selfless love on a regular basis. It's learning how to lose. It's learning how to forgive. It's learning how to give when it hurts, when it's inconvenient. And it's not enough to say, well, this is the right thing to do. You have to feel that Christ is asking this of you. Christ is asking you to love your spouse. He wants to touch your spouse through you, inspire your spouse through you. And not only that, hey, your kids are watching. Your kids are absorbing all this. They're penetrating your hearts and seeing, hey, how's mom and dad? How are they doing? And what does marriage look like? And what does love look like? And that lesson of love at home is one of the biggest lessons all of us can learn. And those who don't learn it, that's really an injustice. It's an injustice for the kids, right? So I think if Christ isn't at the center, it's really hard. It's not a white-knuckling effort. It's grace. It's getting God involved. And I do think it's really wanting it. I've been challenging couples to ask each other, honey, how can I be a better spouse? Tell me. Not 20 things, just one thing. How can I love you better? And how can I be a better parent to Johnny, Susie, and Billy? And I think if both couples really want that and want to be challenged and want to grow, you could have an amazing marriage and an amazing spousal parenting effort. But I'm not sure it's hard, right? This is hard stuff. It's a lot harder to do that than manage your office at work or even manage your kitchen or manage your yard, right? It's a human relationship that's very important.
What happens, Father Sliney, when a couple comes to you and they'll say, look, we love our faith, we love the church, we love our Christianity, but we've grown apart. And we've tried, and we just can't put this thing back together. And we're both miserable. And this is what I've heard from friends. And the kids are miserable because we're miserable. So how do you react to that?
I would first by questioning how deep their Christianity really is. Because if they're really praying and really reading Scripture and really listening to Jesus Christ, I think they'd be hearing Christ tell them, you know what, this is kind of tough, but I'm asking you to go a little farther, a little deeper. And if we're all about feelings, how many people really feel like getting up to go to work every day? How many people feel like loving? It's tough. But if your motivation is Christ and your kids and really your own fulfillment for that matter, I think it's important to go back to that moment when you married your spouse and say, why in the heck did I marry this person? What were the good qualities? What were the positive things? And I think the devil and our negativity can blind us, and we get so focused on 2 or 3 things that drive us crazy, we forget, hey, this person's actually pretty good. And having someone else in my life isn't the solution. And I need to dig deep in this trench and really try to make it work and realize, my kids will benefit, and that's the greatest gift I can give them. Look, there are cases, obviously, when even as a priest, I would recommend people to separate. But a lot of the times it's not worthy of separation. It's just, you're getting sick of each other. And I don't think that's a good enough reason to throw in the towel. I mean, I could say that about my priesthood. You know, it's getting tough, so I'm just going to quit. I can't say that. There's too many people counting on me, and actually I love my priesthood because I love Christ. And that's, for me, that's really the solution, is if Christ really is close to you, he will strengthen you, he'll motivate you. And I think, if one spouse does start stepping it up and really loving selflessly, the other spouse tends to come on board. The problem is neither one really wants to make that first step, right? That's a challenge.
855-40-LAURA. We're going to take a break here. We'll get to your calls. If you've come to a point in your relationship where you frankly don't know where to turn and you've tried to get advice, it hasn't worked, it's not getting better, let's talk about it. 855-40-LAURA. Michael Sliney will be with us, continuing with us, closing out this hour. A lot more to get to on Life Zet, where we examine a myriad of issues, including the biggest health challenges we're facing today with an aging population, aging parents, how to deal with this gracefully and with the patience and having enough money to do it at the same time. It's all very difficult. Saved by the Second Amendment. Fascinating story of self-defense made possible by our belief in independence and having the liberty to defend oneself is guaranteed through our Constitution. So I want you to check out many of the wonderful pieces on LifeZet and make us your favorite, on one of your homepage favorites, and of course on Facebook as well. We'll take a break. Don't go. Solving marital problems, not easy in a disposable culture. Father Michael Sliney stays with us here on the Laura Ingraham Show, counseling couples. He's a priest in New York and has done great work in video and in-person counseling of Christians, Catholics who are having a tough time. And there's a lot of societal pressures that are there today, financial, cultural, raising children in this toxic environment, and an unrealistic expectation sometimes that we put on each other, and especially in the marital context. 855-40-LAURA. Let's go to Lynn on line 2. Lynn, go ahead, my friend.
Thank you. I really am glad you're taking this time to talk about this issue, and I just would like to share some of the things that my wife and I have found to be helpful for us. Number one, we married in a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. In other words, there are 3 people in our marriage, and Christ is the head of our marriage. And we try to serve him and serve each other each day. And by doing so, we don't have to worry about me and me and me. We worry about the other person and serving Christ.
Yeah, I think, and we only have time for short comments here, but Father Sliney, he's kind of repeating what you said without understanding this as a bond, not just between the two of you, but before the Almighty. This is a pledge you made before the Almighty. This goes right to the heart of your honor and your character. It's tough to make it in today's world.
Yeah, in fact, Laura, I would just say that there is a complementarity of the sexes. There's a richness in man and a richness in woman, and God wants us to learn from each other, right? Neither one of us have the full package. I mean, we're both human, but there's elements that are different and helpful. And I think, like Lynn was saying, it does come down to doing it out of love for Christ. And I really think Christ is always there inspiring how you can love each other. He's there to accompany you when it is hard to love the other person. And I think he's deeply consoled when you actually go there. And guess what? The kids are learning love. I mean, I think that's something we can underestimate. I'm a Catholic priest, and I can tell you I'm grateful my dad worked his tail off and provided for our family. And my mom taught as well. She was a teacher. And they did a lot of good service. But what I most appreciate is they both loved Christ and they both loved each other. And, when I went home, it was a safe place. It was a place that was happy. It was a place that was peaceful. It was a place where I felt unconditional love, which I didn't feel anywhere else. And I think if parents could just value that, this is a training ground. It's not just you and your wife. It's not just you. It's kids, and it's the community. I mean, when a happily married couple shows up anywhere, guess what? People notice. People are inspired. People can sniff it out. They say, "Hey, that's pretty good. Look at that."
And you know what?
And
even goofy, even little things, little small things, Father Sliney, and I always remark on this, to see a couple, in their 60s or 70s or older holding hands or or pulling a chair out, or standing up when a woman walks into a room, your wife, or putting her coat on. Just little gestures, small little gestures. Not the big thing, big gifts or anything like that, but just little gestures.
I was telling this guy once that you should really consider going to your church and praying with your spouse. And he said, "Oh, Father, I mean, who does that?" And right at that moment, we were actually just outside of church. I saw a couple walk in, an older couple, and they knelt down and prayed. I said, "Well, they're doing that, and that's probably why they're still married."
Wonderful.
Having a date night is great. Why not have a date night with Christ as a little, interval there just before you head out to the restaurant?
Very, very cool. I love this conversation. Really taking us away from politics to, frankly, what really matters. Not that politics isn't important, but this is what people who are married, they deal with this every day of the week. It's compromising and being sacrificial, which, of course, is what Christ calls us to be. Father Michael Sliney, thank you so much. We'll continue this conversation on Facebook. Drew will post that piece from the New York Post about sleeping separately as couples and how that works out for you. Okay, you're on your phone all the time. I mean, admit it. You cling to it. You carry it around. If you misplace it, you feel like you
feel naked.
Naked. Right? Where's my phone? Where's my phone? How many times have I left my phone in this studio as I'm driving away from the studio? And one of the interns has to bring it down to me. But I know you freak. You freak out when you don't have your phone. And I do notice this. Okay, I do notice this, that I don't remember numbers like I used to. And it's not just because I'm getting older, although I'm getting older. I used to remember numbers. Like there's a couple numbers I remember. I remember Raymond's. I remember Chris's. I remember.
Come on, where's my number?
I know yours. I know Drew's, but I don't know numbers like I used to know them. You memorize numbers. Remember Raymond growing up? You
right.
memorized numbers.
You had to. And addresses.
Oh, addresses. You knew their addresses.
The other thing a smartphone
does. It's making us stupid. That's a new story that came out. It's making us less engaged on fact-based learning and memorization.
Well, all technology changes you in some way. I mean, every advance in technology. Smartphones, unfortunately, have deprived us of our brain and common sense, because think about it. You don't know how to get anywhere without typing the address into the cell phone. People can't read maps. Kids cannot read maps anymore.
You look at a map, the kids just want to...
Unless there's a traveling dot like that Harry Potter has, moving over the map magically, they can't follow the map. So you need to use the cell phone. And I was speaking to a doctor the other day, and he was saying so many of his patients have sleep deprivation because they leave the phone on and they're constantly checking in the middle of the night, or the light goes off, or it buzzes, and it wakes them, and they read the messages.
Okay, here's a question for all of you. Do you ever check your phone in the middle of the night? Okay, do you check? And I'm not talking about if it's an emergency, the phone, your home phone, if you still have a home phone. Your cell phone. Do you check your cell phone if you have to get up to go to the bathroom? Do you check your phone? Okay, if you wake up and you just have momentary insomnia, do you check your phone? Do you leave your phone on your side table or on your actual bed? Okay. Do you find yourself checking your phone under the table while you're at dinner at a public restaurant or facility?
Wait, what do you mean under the table? Do you check your cell phone while you're in conversation with people you're having dinner with?
Yes.
Ms. Ingram.
We got a name there.
If they're boring, yes, I will. No, I won't. I don't like that. On occasion. Okay. They're dull. Here's a question. Have you ever, Raymond Arroyo, checked your cell phone during Mass? You cannot tell a lie. Yes or no?
Yes.
So have I. I don't do it often. But I have done it.
Well, that's right. I'm looking up alternative homilies.
Right.
That's what it is.
Using it kind of all the time, excessively, having a little bit of an inability to control your use. So we had a lot of people reporting that, they couldn't turn their phone off.
Smartphones are making us less able to think for ourselves. Researchers are now claiming. The study has shown that people who have strong cognitive skills spend less time on their devices than those with less brain power. Those who think in an analytical way also pick up their phones less frequently because they remember things or are able to work problems out for themselves. The study said that smartphones were making people lazier than ever as we saw them as an extension of our mind. Googling information we don't know is replacing natural curiosity, a trend that will only get worse in the future. The study was carried out by researchers at the University of Waterloo in Ontario and involved studying 660 people. The team looked at various measures of brain power and cognitive skills ranging from intuitive to analytical, along with verbal and numeracy skills. They also asked all of those taking part to write down their smartphone habits, and they got into deep details on how often they check their phone, use their phone, frequency of use, frequency of checking, duration of calls, duration of web browsing.
Take a selfie and Instagram it.
He said, our research provides support for an association between heavy smartphone use and lowered intelligence. I am opening this up because I actually think it's a huge problem. 855-40-LAURA. Do you feel like you're becoming more dependent on your phone, especially for driving and finding places? I will submit that in new places, when I go to a city that I don't know well, I don't learn the city. Like if I'm there for 2 or 3 days, which I often am if I'm speaking or doing events or new businesses we're working on or station visits, I used to learn the city. I don't feel like I learned the city. I'm talking geographical, to be able to hop in the car and drive. Oh, yeah, it's over there. You find your way there.
I'm sure you can do New York, though.
I know. Well, New York, because I've lived there for a while. Yes, I know New York. I know New York very well. But I don't use my cell phone to find my way around New York because I learned it.
Right.
I don't think we're learning it. We're not learning numbers. It's always to your contacts. Even frequently dialed numbers, people aren't learning anymore. Do you find there's a correlation between cell phone use and your own cognitive abilities? Are they sharpening or decreasing? Have you noticed a difference? And do you notice it among younger people? Because they're constantly checking, constantly checking. 855-40-LAURA. And what effect do you see smartphones having on the younger generation? Children, grandchildren, friends? We have a lot of young people listening to the show. A lot of you listen on Laura 365, which you should learn more about on our website. You can listen. You can stream the show anytime you want, anywhere you want, on your smartphone. A lot of people are using it on their smartphone. So you're listening it to on your iPad or wherever you are, right? Do you find yourself losing that edge a little bit because you instantly go for the easy way? The easy way is, Google it. The easy way is, no, don't think it through. Let me check the smartphone. I answer this question emphatically yes. 855-40-LAURA. Let's go to Steve, Seattle, Washington, line 2. Steve.
Yes, the other thing it does, especially for younger kids, it reinforces the instant gratification behavior. So when you're trying to instill patience and things take time and things just don't happen overnight, the constant hitting pressing the buttons and getting some sort of response, just reinforcing that behavior, and could have in fact long term, especially if you want to save money to buy things, you have to defer gratification. So I think over the long run, especially for younger people, that behavioral response will have a detrimental effect.
Yeah, well, patience. I mean, the New York Times had this piece back in 2011, Internet Use Affects Memory, study finds. And ditto, the addictive Internet use restructuring the brain, Scientific American. Does addictive Internet use restructure the brain, the way the young brain especially develops? A UCLA study found that Internet use has a marked reaction on brain function. Some people will say it's a positive thing because it stimulates your brain activity. The study, the first of its kind to assess the impact of searching on brain performance is currently in, they're giving us a little preview of it. This was some years ago. The study results back in 2008 were encouraging that emerging computerized technologies may have physiological effects and potential benefits for middle-aged and older adults. That's interesting. So they're still pursuing, this study, and it's a long-term study. Internet searching engages complicated brain activity, which may help exercise and improve brain function in older Americans. That's interesting. So the younger Americans, the older Americans, remember, they grew up without the internet use. So they were able to develop their cognitive functions and not have so much, at least, of that. I think the caller's right, that instant gratification. I want the information now, now, now. No ability to be patient and find the answer. Reason through a problem. I want the answer now. Let's go to Richard, Globe, Arizona, line 1. Richard, this is a big topic. There are a lot of different aspects of this. I don't want to sound like I'm anti-technology. I'm not anti-technology, but we have to be honest about sometimes where it takes us. Richard.
Laura, Richard, violence is the big problem. A teenager in Kentucky killed his mother, father, his 12-year-old sister because either his cell phone or computer was taken from him. A girl tried to poison her grandparents. If you're a teacher in the school and a kid breaks the rules by having a cell phone, you literally risk your life trying to get that away from them, because all of their personal information is on that phone, and they will fight you to keep that phone. Now, we are overlooking this factor that these phones, this technology is making our kids crazy, literally crazy, because so much personal information.
Jealousy, well, let's bring up the issues, Richard. I'm glad you raised that issue of violence. Jealousy, obviously, but that's with Facebook and checking everyone else what they're doing. Jealousy, bullying, online porn, sexting, and I think that addictive quality, which is it's just obvious. I mean, I feel like I use it too much, right? It's addicting. It is addicting. I constantly have to be in touch. Always plugged in. You don't relax. How about relaxing? How about experiencing life? How about breathing, looking at the beauty around you instead of craning your neck downward to the smartphone?
We went to a concert last week at the Verizon Center. Here are people that paid hundreds of dollars to be on the floor of this concert. Every one of them, almost to a person, has the cell phone in front of their faces recording the concert. No. Why didn't you just wait for the video release? They'll release it on DVD eventually.
They're not really experiencing they're not experiencing the concert.
They're experiencing it via television, via a screen, when the person is right in front of you. That's what I find so destructive and weird.
Raymond, don't glide by this concert so quickly. Who, pray tell, did you see in concert?
Have you listened to your show? I confess this and went very...
Well, maybe not everybody listening now heard you on Friday.
It was a Barry Manilow concert in the incredible voice he was in. The children turned to me, Mariella turned to me and said, he sings better than the album, because she's only heard it on CD.
Mariella's 9.
She was, and she's there shaking the glow stick. It was an amazing, a great family concert.
He's an amazing performer.
Tremendous.
He is what a talent.
But not to be enjoyed via the cell phone.
Right, you just hold it. Mike, you've seen that at rock concerts. Do the same thing.
Ridiculous.
Rock concerts, movies.
Movies. That's against the law.
Yeah.
It's against the law. You can't do that at movies.
I told you when I was on my honeymoon in Antigua and the storm came through and knocked out the Wi-Fi. As soon as it came back on, 300 people are crammed into a 20 by 20 hotel room checking their Facebook sites.
Because they only got it in one room, Mike said. So they all all these people on vacation, they all go into the one room.
Paradise with white sandy beaches and a bar stock that's free, and nope, I gotta get on Facebook.
Oh no, they're all there. Oh no, that's hilarious.
I gotta Instagram this.
You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, dumbing down America. The cell phone, the constant turned on technology, killing the curiosity of the American people. I'm sorry. I think I agree with this. I agree with this as a subjective matter and an objective matter. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Do you check too often? Do you have your phone by your bed? Why is it there by your bed? And do you feel like you want to wean yourself away from it? Too much. 855-40.
News reporter from Florida.
That's hilarious. I agree. We're devolving with technology. I know I'm sounding anti-science, and everyone's, Laura, you can't stop. The genie's out of the bottle. we're having a conversation.
Trivia Crack, the word game. We play those all the time. When the kids are playing theirs, we're playing ours. That's a family night of fun on Friday night. Everybody has their devices, and they're sitting there playing on them instead of playing games like we used to.
I think you get really lost in your texting and checking up on your emails and surfing really easily, and then you lose track of your spending time with the kid.
We're human beings. We're not robots. We want to have emotions and experiences. I was in Florida. It was not very good weather. It was kind of rainy, but I went down to the beach, right? And I didn't have my phone the first time I went. And I thought, I got to take a picture of this. Stormy skies, dark clouds, but there was a beautiful opening in the clouds with the rays. It looks like God. The image of God breaking through the clouds, and the sunlight and the rays are coming down. It's beautiful. Really stormy, though. Super high waves and so forth. And I said to myself, I got to experience it. But I felt like, where's my phone? And I was thinking, where's my phone? For just a few minutes, I ruined the entire moment for myself because I was paranoid about losing my phone, or I left my phone down at the pool, someone could take it. I went back and got the phone. Then I come back out, snapped some photos, threw it on Facebook. And I walked up and down the beach and took some photos for my kids because they weren't with me and want to take photos of the jellyfish and stuff because they like to pop the jellyfish. They like to stomp on the jellyfish and pop them. Nico likes to especially pop them, and you hear the sound, pop, pop, pop. They're all over the beach. Those man-o-wars, those things are horrible.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm taking lots of photos.
Not trying to be touching them.
But I thought to myself, remember when you just used to go to the beach and enjoy the moment? But instead I turn it into an assignment. I have to snap the photos. You don't have to snap the photo. Just enjoy the moment, people. Enjoy the moment.
What smartphones have done for us, the lack of interaction that we have with people, what's going on, in the world, because everywhere you look, you don't see people sitting down reading books anymore. They have a Kindle. You don't see people sitting at dinner tables talking to each other. They're handing their kids iPads, and they're on their phones, and we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Farm Heroes.
Greg, Jacksonville, Florida, an opposite point of view, and I like everybody's point of view on this. Greg, go ahead.
Florida. Yeah, on the other hand, it's a great learning device. Very often my wife and I in discussions, for example, you were just talking about the Selma March, and we said, well, why was the civil rights, did that go on after the Civil Rights Act was actually passed? And then, when was Martin Luther King assassinated? You go to your iPhone, you ask the question, you learn something.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you're right. You can learn great facts and dip back in and out of history, and if everyone was doing what you were doing, Greg, the iPhone or the internet or the addiction wouldn't be an issue. You're actually using it the right way. Good. All right, David on line 5, millennials in their work ethic. I hate to paint with such a broad brush with millennials, but I guess I've found that in some cases it does seem they're a little less hungry than I was. Let's just put it that way. A little less hungry, a little more concerned with their free time or their personal schedules than they are with work. And maybe it's part of the everybody gets a trophy generation. Well, like, I'm special and I need my personal time and I've had this previous engagement and I just can't make it tomorrow. I'm sorry, I can't make it. David, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Laura, for taking my call. I've been a big fan for a while.
Thanks.
Read all your books. Thank you.
Thank you.
My daughter is 20 years old, and she has to be just the most unmotivated, laziest person I know. Her main 3 priorities in life are getting a new tattoo, going to the latest movie, and going to the concert. And that is all she is worried about. She has no career path. She's the girl who went to a job interview in a pair of flip-flops, a torn T-shirt, and sweatpants, and then when they turned her down, was totally oblivious to the fact that you look like a homeless bum, why didn't I get the job? She just didn't understand that fact. And I was always brought up, 15 minutes early, you walk in, suit and tie, you put your best foot forward,
Absolutely.
You bust your butt, you work for what you want, growing up in the Midwest and here in Iowa. And my daughter is just, me, and if she don't get her way, she'll have a freaking temper tantrum.
Well, can I ask a few questions about her upbringing? Because Columbo here has a few, my little antenna are going up here. So how did you model behavior for her? Your own work ethic, your own approach to life. You and your wife, I assume. Are you and your wife together?
Yep. My wife and I have been married 20 years yesterday.
Okay, so she's 20. You had her right away when you got married. Is that right? I'm not trying to get too personal here. But...
Yeah, my wife was pregnant with her when we got married.
Right, so what? Great. So you got married and good stuff. So when did your wife work, or did she did she do the hard work of raising children?
She stayed home and raised the kids until they all got to like 5, 6 years old, and then she got a job and joined the workforce, and she had been kind of working intermittently in between our kids. As
and how many children do you have? How many children?
We have 4 kids. My daughter and then 3 boys, and my 3 sons are very hard workers. Want to go to college, fight for what they want, save their money.
Okay, so she's an outlier. She sounds like an outlier in the family. You know what you should do? You should have her call into the show at some point. I'm going to help her. No, I'll help her. I will help her. Look, she just needs to get a better focus. She needs to get on the right track. And the society is filled with all sorts of little, enticements and shiny objects that young people will follow. And then all of a sudden they'll wake up and they'll be 35 and they'll still be wearing the same pair of flip-flops they were wearing when they were 21. And they'll think, gee, why does it seem like life has passed me by? So get her to call into the show sometime and tell our call screener that you're Dave from Iowa. And she can think this is really goofy, but guess what? I think I can help. I just have a feeling that I can help. Is she doing any work whatsoever now, or is she in school now?
She has a job that she has expressed her desire that she is going to be quitting that job because she wants to be a professional video game player. I don't even know what the heck that means.
Did you allow your kids to play video games at home?
When they were younger, we did, but it was, your homework's done, your chores are done. This is the last hour before your bedtime. So yeah, you can play a video game with Dad, and we'll have a little, competition with the game, or you can play with Mom. It was, never a console in their room, and their hours and hours.
Well, I can't figure out. I can't figure this out without talking to her. But I want to talk to her. I want to see what's going on in her head and who her friends are and what her faith life is, and see if we can't make some progress there. So try to get her to call into the show. I mean, I know you think she might not, but she might. You just never know. Well, and plus, if nothing else, she can just have a fun conversation. And then she could just laugh at me thinking I don't know what I'm talking about, which is fun. It's not the first time I've heard that. Let's go to TJ in Utah, line 1. TJ, we're talking about millennials. They're about aged 18 to 25, 26 or so. That's what they peg the millennial generation as. And this is this is the generation that grew up most, I think best described as the everybody gets a trophy generation, right? Where there is no winner or loser. There are no class rankings anymore, and everyone's special. And it's the PC culture. I mean, politically correct culture in schools and in colleges. And now what?
Well,
now
Drew's
what?
A millennial.
What? Drew's a millennial, but he's really hardworking. So I don't think you can paint it with a broad brush. I think they just need to be taught. I mean, a lot of them just aren't taught. They don't have parents who really actually teach them why it's so important to have a work ethic and to show up at work with a can-do attitude. You know what the worst thing you could tell someone who's your superior in the workplace? No, I don't think I can do that. You know what you say? I'm going to try my best to get that done. Or, okay, there might be some. Let me do my best. Let me see what I can do to get that done. Or, absolutely. In fact, I already have it done. Outperform in the workplace. That's what I tried to do. You outperform. So you go above and beyond, and then suddenly you become indispensable in the workplace. You become the indispensable one. Next thing you know, you're promoted. You're off to the next thing. TJ in Utah, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, big fan, and I am a millennial, but I'm on the older edge of it. And I think it actually goes all the way up to mid 30s now, 34
Oh, does
maybe.
it? Okay. Go ahead.
But I don't think it should. I think that there is a demarcation between the millennials that grew up in that trophy culture, but then we went to college, most of us, and then graduated into the Great Recession, and that taught us that all of this gilded, wonderful life we thought we would have is no longer around. It's a new normal. And so I find that the older millennials tend to work really hard. They tend to be very motivated and great workers. And then the younger generation that's coming out of college now still has that same gilded mentality, but they haven't had to go through that harder period. So
I think the 9/11, TJ, don't you think 9/11 also, you were, 14 or so when 9/11 happened? Am I getting that right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was.
9/11 also is different. It's a different demarcation for older millennials. I think that's a great point. So you lived through that, you saw that, and just even through a teenage eye, that's a formative experience. That's an interesting point. Thank you for that input. Let's go to Rebecca in California, line 2. Rebecca.
Yes, hello, Laura. So good to speak with you.
Back at you, girl.
I am 25. I have a sibling who is 23, and my sister just turned 20.
Mm-hmm.
We're a household of millennials, and I've often told my mother we are old enough to be our grandparents. Ever since I was, very young, I've always been ostracized in a way from my peers because and my mom gets mad at me when I say, the kids in college or the kids in class or the kids on my sports team. But I can't call them men. They act like boys, and the young women my age, they act like girls. The problem, I think, with a lot of my peers is they haven't grown up. They're still children.
The adolescence continues, in other words, Rebecca. They're perpetual adolescence, but the culture encourages that, don't you think?
Well, it's not just the culture. I think it's everything. And, of course, it's always beginning with the parents. It's the parents abandoning their kids completely to school, to the TV, and then when they get to teenage years, all the kids want to do is be with other kids their own age, and it's fostered continually from the TV they watch to the books they read. I've picked up sometimes young adult literature, and it feels like it's written for a third grader.
Oh, thank you for saying that, Rebecca. Don't go away. Stay here. Stay here with me. That is so funny that you mentioned that, because a friend of mine was just proposing to write something for Life Zet on the dumbing down of literature for young adults today, and how it's either filthy dirty, it's filthy, much of it, or you're right, it's written as if it's being read by a sixth grader. Poor narrative, poor plot, no character development, horrible, horrible, horrible. A lot of bad stuff. I completely concur with this conclusion of yours. Now, Rebecca, is your family an immigrant family into the United States?
My mom was, yes.
And where's she from?
And she's from Guatemala.
Oh, my daughter's from Guatemala.
And do you know, her father, he raised her and her brothers praising the Reagan. His hero was Reagan, John Wayne, Gary Cooper, these figures that I myself was raised, and I can't say these names anymore. People look at me and they go, who's that? Who's John Wayne? And I gape. I think, you don't know the Duke?
A real man,
the symbol of American manhood.
Yeah, he was a man.
She came. I don't speak Spanish. I have no culture. I've never been to Guatemala, and I'm completely cut off from that culture. My mom wholly adopted America. She's now a citizen, and to my ear at least, she speaks perfect English, and she homeschooled us.
Well, now I get. Now the secret sauce becomes obvious. You were homeschooled, and your mother developed a very strong love of this country. That's the way it should be, right, Rebecca? You have just described for us perfectly the immigrant experience as it should be experienced. That's it. You just described it. A work ethic, an understanding of American culture, history, American heroes, proper gender roles, men and women, the love of learning, and the desire to be truly different. Like a lot of people are being heralded because they dare to be different. And so Caitlyn Jenner is the courage, the epitome of courage today. Okay, that's the way a lot of people feel. So it's Caitlyn, but I think it's courageous to stand athwart the culture as it exists today. I think your stand is, what are you, 25?
Yes, ma'am.
I think that's courageous to stand against the culture as it exists today. But you can sum up, and then we'll take a break.
I tell people, if they ask, no, I'm not a feminist, I'm feminine. And that goes for my brother too. He's a man, and unfortunately, I don't know if there's any other men out there for me or my sister. I've never been approached in all of my days, but this is courage, that I'm willing to say who I am. I'm not going to cave into this culture. I'm going to be who I am, whether the party or whoever has a problem with that.
Well, your faith is key, and stay in that faith community, and you'll find someone great. And you're obviously extremely smart. And that's the call of the day. That's a great call. You should get on LifeZet, Rebecca. Get on our new website. You're going to love it. Who knows? You might even contribute to it. I don't mean money. I mean content. LifeZet, ZETTE.com. Go on and you can hit the health, faith, family, pop culture, politics. It sounds like it speaks right to you and where you are in your life right now. Great call. We'll take a break. A lot of employers deciding to go with older workers who have a more developed, consistent work ethic. You're listening to your Healthy Radio Addiction. 60% of workers age 18 to 34, that's the millennials, say if their boss prevented them from using a mobile device to take care of personal tasks, they'd quit.
Oh, no.
They would quit. Many millennials have never known a world without mobile devices. Now employers are forced to deal with younger workers who want to be able to text and use social media on the job. That's a problem. I'm telling you, that is an issue.
You mean I can't Instagram?
Especially the way people are losing focus, an inability to focus and finish a task before them with a sense of excellence and pride and workmanship. You can't do 5 things at once well. You just can't do it. And many jobs require an acute mind, an especially strong focus, laser beam focus, and you're not focused if you're worried about the next text or the next Instagram or the next Snapchat.
We want people to Facebook it, tweet it, all that.
Instagram it,
the hashtag.
Vine it.